So, since yesterday afternoon sometime, I was told I was going to speak here on New Year's Eve and just before New Year's. And I kept thinking it was April 1st and it was an April Fool's joke. Because right here we have Radhanath Maharaj. Everyone, we always want to hear from him. We're all here because of him. One way or another, this place wouldn't exist without Maharaj. So, but he says it's my destiny. So I was thinking, of course we know, Prabhupada's disciples, we all know, well, Prabhupada said, like he said in Vrindavan once, a devotee asked Prabhupada, it was the people in the other temples, the Goswamis, they were celebrating some festival day. It wasn't on our calendar, but it was being celebrated. And they asked Prabhupada, is today festival day? And most of you will know the answer. Prabhupada said, every day is festival day in Krishna consciousness. Every day. I looked back over the time I was with Srila Prabhupada for a long time. I think I was with him through 8 eclipses. I never remember that there was an eclipse when you traveled with Srila Prabhupada. It was, every day was the same. Actually, every day was a festival day when you traveled with him, as Vishaka would know. It was always a festival. Wherever he went, the devotees were in ecstasy every day. Just to see him going to the morning walk, coming back from the morning walk, Guru Puja, class. He said every day was a festival day. We never had birthdays. We didn't have Christmas. We didn't have New Year's. Every day was like New Year's Day. Every day was a day to celebrate. And it's still that way. I've been here since the beginning of December. 1 month today I've been here. Every day is a celebration here. You go to Govardhan Aratik, you go to the Jamuna Aratik, goes Sri Sri Radha Madan Mohan Temple, Radha Vrindavan Bahari Temple, always festivities here. And of course this is all due to Srila Prabhupada. I was thinking in this class, we were saying it's 8:15 now. Fortunately, the play will start at 8:45 and maybe even earlier. I was with Prabhupada in Vrindavan. It was 1974, so temple didn't open at that time. Oh, as long as we're here. April 1st to April 6th is the 50th anniversary of the opening of Krishna Balaram Mandir. And I have invitations to give to all of you to come to this monumental occasion. Every week we have a meeting now preparing for this festival. Srila Prabhupada's home. He not only installed the deities, he literally drew their forms at the beginning, what these deities would be, Radha Shyama Sundar, Krishna Balaram, Gaur Nitai. So that'll be happening in just a few months. Anyway, it was September 1974, and some of you will know Prabhupada was very ill at that time for a few weeks. And at that time as well, he had his bed in his sitting room. He didn't eat for almost 2 weeks. And then finally, when he started to feel better, I would take him in the evening. He would sit under the tamal tree in his rocking chair. I would have to carry him. I would put my hands under his armpits and walk him in. And he would sit there under the tamal tree. And he would listen to class by his disciples. You can imagine giving class with Srila Prabhupada sitting there. And the one class was one of his sannyasi disciples. Prabhupada always aware of everything going on around him. Everything. You might think he was chanting japa or doing something, but he knew everything everyone was doing. So this devotees giving class, is sannyasi. He joined 1966. And he was the temple commander in Vrindavan at that time. And his class was like that. It was more like an istagosti. And he was reprimanding devotees because they weren't coming to the classes. People weren't coming to Mangal Artik. And Prabhupada had a thing he would do sometimes when he was like this. I've seen him do it 3 or 4 times. And it was when something wasn't right. He did it in front of Cardinal Danilo in France when he was talking all his nonsense, meat-eating stuff, and just waiting for his chance to talk. He did it in Kurukshetra when he was invited to go there as the chairman of this Sangha, bringing all the different groups together, the Jains, the Mayavadis, this group, that group. And he had to wait till the end to talk. And as each one was talking, because they were in Kurukshetra, no one even mentioned Krishna. And you could see Prabhupada just becoming around. But even during this class, it was like that. So finally he looked at me, he said, "Tell him class should just be half an hour." I went up, I told him, and the class had ended at that time. So the next night we're out there, Prabhupada's sitting under the tamal tree in his chair, and I'm sitting on the floor next to him. One of the very first sannyasis, he's giving class. And Prabhupada's sitting and listening, and you couldn't read his mind. He could read your mind. We couldn't read his mind. But he's sitting there. And then the class stopped. Prabhupada looked at me, smiled. He said, "Well, at least it was half an hour." So this was his disciples. He started this worldwide movement. He opened up over 100 temples with children, just very young children in Krishna consciousness. His desire was so strong. Whatever we did, right or wrong, somehow or other, things move forward. He said to me once in Los Angeles when the Juhu case was going back and forth, and he would walk around and chant. In New Dwarka, if you know New Dwarka, he would go through his sitting rooms, 2 sitting rooms, his bedroom. Then he'd go down the hallway past the bathroom. Then it was the servants' quarters where I'd be sitting. And you could hear him chanting on his beads. And he stopped right in front of me. He had gotten some letter that day, some message. And he looked at me. He said, "When you're in your anxiety, you chant very loudly on your beads," he said. And you could hear his beads in his bead bag. He was chanting. Then he looked at me. I was Grahasta at the time. He said, "Even as a Grahasta," he said, "very easy to chant your 16 rounds. He said, you chant 4 early in the morning, and then you chant 4 before every meal, meaning 3 meals a day." Prabhupada was taking 3 meals a day while I was with him. He said, "In that way, you'll get your 16 rounds done." He said, "And if you don't chant those 4 rounds, you can't eat that meal." He said, "Then you'll get your rounds done." It was very practical. Devotees ask me how I managed to stay with Prabhupada, which relatively speaking was a long time. For me, it was easy. It's always said, right, how one's supposed to be a fool before their spiritual master. I could understand I was a fool before my spiritual master. From the very beginning, very first morning walk in Dallas, the sun came up and Prabhupada handed me his chadar. And I grabbed it and I tried to fold it and stuff, and he just looked at me and he took it from me. the chadar, just a simple piece of cloth. He took it from me. And our hands are together. There's a photograph of it. And Prabhupada had to show me how to fold a piece of cloth, a chadar. He said like this. So this was Guru. Everything learned from Srila Prabhupada. I think it was in Japan, 1970. It was Vyas Puja Day. No one knew what to do. No, Prabhupada said, perform Pushpanjali. So they went into the kitchen. They came back in a half hour later with Pushpana rice. They thought that they knew. Prasadam they knew. Pushpana, they figured Pushpana rice. So they made Pushpana rice. And Prabhupada said, come back tomorrow. We'll do it tomorrow. So they did it tomorrow. Myself, there's one thing. I have my New Year's Day. I'm waiting for my New Year's Day. It is yet to come. And I've told this many, many times. But I'll tell it today since it's New Year's Eve and New Year's is upon us. It was a Bhaktivedanta Manor. Very wonderful place. Prabhupada stayed there for, I think, over 6 weeks in the summertime. And it happened to be the most beautiful time. I lived there for 8 years. There was never a month like that when I lived there for 8 years, but the sun was shining so nicely. Prabhupada, you see so many pictures of him in the garden, sitting with the devotees. I had been with him a year. And one of the things he did, Dhananjaya was there. He came in one day, I was massaging Srila Prabhupada, Dhananjaya came in, and Prabhupada, he said, we're opening up a temple in Rome. Prabhupada said, very good. He said, but we need, if there's some devotees, we could use some devotees. And Prabhupada looked at me, I'm massaging him. He said, you're Italian. He said, you want to go to Rome, help him open up a temple? I said, no, Srila Prabhupada, stay with you. I wanted to stay with you. Said, okay, that was the end of it. But then another day massaging him, Prabhupada saw everything as expert. And everything, attentiveness. Everything was about being attentive. And you learn that when you're with the pure devotee. Krishna consciousness means attention, always attention. And as soon as you lose your attention, anything can happen. And I did it. I was massaging Prabhupada's back with mustard oil, massaging his back with mustard oil. At just that time, after a year, I massaged him every day. And you always massaged him until he told you to change positions. He didn't speak, he would just, and that meant go to the next spot. So after a year doing it, I know what I'm doing. So 3 days we did it. I massaged his head and I thought, I'm done. I went to his back without him giving me a signal. Then I moved all around his body on my own time. First day, he just sat. Second day, he let me do it again. The third day, I had my hands on his head, rubbing sandalwood oil on his head. Soon as I took my hands off, you massage me until I tell you to stop, not until you tell you to stop. That was the end of independence being with Prabhupada. He called his secretary in the room once, Mayapur. He'd been with them a long time. And he said he had made travel arrangements for Prabhupada. And I saw that happen a few times with different secretaries. Someone would call us, Prabhupada, come here, we'll arrange tickets. And he made an arrangement. And then he went and told Prabhupada. Prabhupada looked at him. He said, you don't move a pin on my desk from here to here without my permission. That's what it was like to be with Srila Prabhupada. You don't do anything unless you had his permission. So this day I'm massaging Srila Prabhupada. And I massaged his head, then I did his back, and then I moved to the side. It's a Bhaktivedanta manner, nice shiny wooden floor, polished, beautiful wood, I don't know what it was. And when I moved it aside, I knocked the mustard oil, bottle of mustard oil over. Prabhupada was so fast, he almost got it. Almost got it before anything came out. Hari Sari and I spoke together one day. He said, I did the same thing. Prabhupada got it before a drop came out. I said, well, it didn't happen with me. I said, many drops came out. But Prabhupada still grabbed it, put it down. And then he yelled, you fool, you'll be intelligent when you're 80. And me, it's all Prabhupada. If Prabhupada raised his voice to me, I you just want to die. And then he continued and said, go get a katuri cup like that. So I ran out of the room. The kitchen was a closet right outside of his room. That was my kitchen. I ran into the room. I got a little cup. I ran back in. And he says, do as I'm doing. Another very good instruction from Prabhupada. Do as I'm doing. He always said that. He said that to his GBC. Do as I do. But his voice was a little different when he said, do what I'm doing. And he put his hand on the floor and started scraping the mustard oil into the katuri. And the two of us are sitting on the floor in our gumshoes and we're scraping the mustard oil into the katuri. He doesn't speak anymore. And then he looks at me, he says, use that oil for the rest of the massage. So that was like another wound, just because that oil had little specks in it here and there. So I'm massaging him and I'm feeling little dust thingies on his penny. Anyway. One thing I never did do with Srila Prabhupada when he chastised me was say, I'm sorry. Because I would become speechless, basically. When he would raise his voice, my brain would shut down. It wasn't that I wasn't apologetic, it was I could hardly speak. But anyway, I never said that. I never said I'm sorry, and I could have. And for the next 45 minutes, I'm massaging him. He doesn't even open his eyes. And I'm thinking this room feels like as they say, heavy. It was very heavy. And I'm thinking, what can I say? What can I say? I always did that with Prabhupada. To speak, I would always have to consider, I say this, he may say this, he may say this, and then you have to know the response to each one of his responses. So you have to, because I saw well enough, if he says something, if you're not set, he'll just... So finally, it's at the end of the massage, and I'm literally rubbing his lotus feet with mustard oil. And I said, Prabhupada. And he looked up. I said, thank you. I said, I thought it would take a lot longer for me to become intelligent. And Prabhupada started laughing and laughing and laughing, and the whole body's shaking, and he's slapping his knee, and he's laughing. He said, very good. Everything changed in 1 second. Everything changed like that. He said, very good. He said, when we were young, if someone did something foolish, he said, we would say that. Young boys, he said, we would say that. You fool, you'll be intelligent when you're 80. He said, and I've used it on you. So I'm right now, this day, I'm 73 and a half today. So I have 6.5 more years. I try to eat very nicely so I can make it to 80 because Prabhupada said, everything Prabhupada said, we know it has to happen. Krishna's desire. So I'm waiting for that. So that's going to be my New Year's. Will be that day. And I'm praying whatever happens. In the meantime, somehow he's put me in Vrindavan. Wife and I, we've been there the last 5 years. It's funny, Prabhupada established Mayapur and Vrindavan for all the devotees to come to recharge, as we say, recharge their batteries, to become enlivened there in Vrindavan, in the Dham, to hear from Goswamis. Prabhupada said our temple, Krishna Balaram Mandir, should have hundreds of Goswamis. He said, just like the 6 Goswamis. He said there should be so many Goswamis to hear from. So we have devotees coming all through the year to Vrindavan. And we've lived there for the last 5 years. But we come here to GEV to recharge our batteries from Vrindavan, serving in Vrindavan. Not so easy, Maharaj. Very difficult place. What is the word? Is Vrindavan, yeah, very special. Everything about it is very special. Intense. Prabhupada's energy there. He said you do 1% in Vrindavan, becomes 100%. He said, but if you make offenses in Vrindavan, 1%, that also becomes 100%. So to come here is how we're recharging our batteries. We're very grateful to Radhanath Maharaj for what he's done here for all of us. And literally, he's made a Vrindavan here. We can go one place to the next to the next. And I know eventually there's also going to be Krishna Balaram Mandir here in GEV. Except we're going to scout out and find a place. One of these days we're going to scout out and find a place where Prabhupada's temple will be there, Krishna Balaram Mandir. So I know everybody is looking forward to the rest of the program. We're going to have 2 nice dramas. Then we're going to hear from Jai Sachinanda, nice kirtan. I think, and then there's going to be a Pushpanjali, I believe, somehow or other. Is that correct? Yeah. So I think at this point, maybe Maharaj, if you would like to say a few words. I know everyone's disappointed seeing me up here, but I'm also disappointed seeing me up here and you sitting there. Of course, there's no pressure, Maharaj, but I kept it within half an hour. Sometimes Prabhupada, after class, he would have breakfast. He'd call me into his room. He'd say, did you record that class? I'd say, yes, Prabhupada. He'd say, play it. I want to hear it. He said it was really nice. So even Prabhupada, when he spoke, he let you understand everything coming from Krishna. Like he said in his books, every word from Krishna. So I see you're also ready over there. So I thank you all for sitting here, giving me an opportunity to say a little something. I hope somehow or other it was useful. And Prabhu.
Srutakirti Prabhu ki jai, Shiropat ki jai. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for sharing this beautiful leelas of Prabhupada and inspiring us, and seeing more and more the depth of your experience, and also helping us to relish